The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Welcome to Easton 300. This is a monthly TV show that talks about the good things that happen not only here in the town of Easton, but as they plan and prepare as a community for the 300th anniversary for the town of Easton, Massachusetts, a community here in Bristol County. And of course, lots of folks here, 25,000 according to 25,000 plus, according to the 2020 census report. I'm Dave Clifton. I'm here along with Brian Hoffman. And Brian, we've been doing this show called Easton 300 since 2023.
Yep.
And on a monthly basis. And we're going to continue to do this show before I get kicked out of town. And that'll be in 2025, as we're excited about this. I call it a giant celebration because we got lots of things that'll be happening. And our theme for the celebration is bringing families and community together. Today, Brian, we got two special guests.
We do indeed.
They certainly are well known here in the town of Easton.
They sure are.
They never can forget their last name because their last name is on just about every building here in the town, and lots of history that goes with the town of Easton. And I'm going to give you, Brian, the honor and privilege of introducing our guest to our listening and viewing audience. I happen to know who they are anyways, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And hello, everybody. Welcome back to Easton 300. Dave says this every time, and I do as well, but it is an absolute pleasure to work with the officials in the town, the select board, all of the department heads, and with a lot of the special residents who are here in Easton who've quickly raised their hands and put their energy forth to help with the 300th. And I was reflecting a moment ago when you said we started in 2023. Back then, 2025 sounded like it was an awful far, a target way over the horizon. And here we are in the last month of 2024. But to my left and to your right at home, Fred Ames. Fred is the president of the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall and a well-known and very well-respected member of the Ames family, very active in a lot of things here in town. And on my far right, on your left at home, is Bill Ames. Bill is, I'm not sure of the position now. Are you still, chairing the board at the library?
I'm the president, chairman of the building endowment. I'm the head of the village cemetery, and I was head of the Grange.
Okay, great.
It's my,
and again, another well-respected member of the Ames family. And as David said, all you need to do is go around town and you will see the Ames name embedded in the history of the town. And so it's a pleasure to have both of these gentlemen here to talk about just that, the history of the town.
Not only that, Brian, but both Fred and Bill are honorary co-chairs of our Easton 300th anniversary celebration. And we thank you both for giving us the time and your talent to be part of a committee that started back, was appointed officially back in late 2022. And then we had our first meeting on a snowy night in December. We met at the Queeset House. And I remember those questions that came up. What are we going to do? There was a question that came up.
And who's going to do it?
How much money do we have to raise? What kind of events will we have? Do you think people will go to the events? What's our timetable? When do we start? How often do we meet? And here we are today we can pretty much answer all those questions. And Fred, I'm going to ask you to go first. Tell us a little bit about the history and your background, your family's background, and because it's certainly, when you think about the town of Easton, you have to think about that last name, Ames.
Oh, all right, well, that's a nice open question. Gosh, many paths I can take. Well, we moved here from Bridgewater in 1803, so we're really, technically speaking, not one of the old Easton families. I mean, we're not, what is it, we're not 18th century, we're 19th century. But again, as was with a lot of people of Leonard's in particular, iron making, which we used for making shovels. And shovels became, a big business, and you can sort of see the old shops have now turned into a very, very nice apartment complex. And so it's been, Bill and I are in the sixth generation. And basically the shovels led to railroads. And that's where Easton's fame comes in. Well, first, Easton is famous as the home of the Ames shovel in the gold rush. And that's where the shovel really made its name, because a lot of the shovels were just not any good. And the Ames shovel did hold up. In fact, there's a museum exhibit, and it shows a miner, and he's sitting there with his bottle of moonshine and something else and an Ames shovel. So it was very much identified with the gold rush. And also the Transcontinental Railroad. I mean, that's what really brought Easton into the spotlight.
I heard about that.
Yeah, because Oakes and Oliver were key players. Lincoln, was a friend of Oakes's, and he approached him and said, "You got to take hold of this Union Pacific Railroad." They'd only built 12 miles of track when Oakes took over, and Oliver was the president of the Union Pacific Railroad during the Transcontinental Project. And there are a lot of Ames shovels in that, I can assure you. And so that was a big deal. And Easton was really known. And I mean, who made the shovels? It was the people who lived in Easton. And I think that explains a lot of our continued loyalty and generosity to Easton, is the fact that the people in Easton were really part of that success. Couldn't happen without them. So that really formed a bond with the community. And after that, well, they continue with the philanthropy. As you see, you can just about everywhere you look. There's that, and there's a lot of trust fund money was left. Bill can get more into the specifics, but a large amount of money is paid to the town every year from the family trusts. And I think most people aren't aware of that, but again, we're still in the game, so to speak. We're not sort of built some buildings and left.
And speaking of buildings, Bill, what can you say about the buildings here in the town of Easton? When I first came to town, I walked down the main street, and I was truly amazed to see all these buildings and the architecture and of course the person that was responsible for doing that. Tell us about it.
Well, Fred is much more articulate on this than myself, but that would be the famous H.H. Richardson, who was our great-grandfather, Fred Ames, had a friendship with, who was that guy, Fred? Gambrell?
I think they met through Sargent.
Was it Sargent? It's Professor Sargent at the
had parties in Brookline. I think that's where they met. Was
Yeah.
at one of those parties.
So H.H., and the Ameses were, made a lot of money in the Civil War. So, in a sense, what went through their heads was, a lot of people in those days were accused of being profiteers. In other words, the Ameses didn't go to the Civil War, but they made the shovels that were essential to it and so forth. So I think there was a very big thing about giving back, because you were lucky not to get shot by some Southern character in the war, and you sat here in Easton and you made a lot of money. So I think that my ancestors, Fred's ancestors, were eager, to add something to the portfolio of architecture, and of course the Union Pacific Railroad. I mean, that was clearly a result of that attitude. That that was the subtext of what Lincoln was saying to the Ameses was, let's redeploy some of that money and do your bit for the country. And that's how they stepped up. I mean, there's different ways to look at it, but I think putting myself in their shoes, I think they were eager to show that they were, players. And
if I remember, there's an Ames, I'm not sure which one, in that famous photograph of driving the Golden Spike when the railroads were joined together.
They were in Boston.
Oh, were they?
Protecting the books.
I thought there was one of them that was at the site.
It was Wild West business back then, and you had to watch the books in case somebody came up and took
right,
them.
they were trying to pay the bills. Trying to pay the bills.
Trying to meet payroll.
As well they should, yeah.
It's an honor and a privilege, Brian, for you and I to be sitting beside or in between the two Ames family
Indeed.
members.
Yeah.
And of course, there's another brother, David. What a terrific first name he has, David.
David, I was
And
thinking
say
that myself.
Because
My father.
I'm sorry, I was slow on the uptake.
Yeah,
Yes. Very slow.
yeah.
Well, so that's the buildings, and I think just the renaissance of Easton in the last 20 years has been extraordinary. Certainly we know about the farmer's daughter and La Corfinio and all these other institutions that have prospered and had so much.
Langwater Farm has been a real. That's sort of a project we've been involved with.
Yes.
As owners of the land.
And
we didn't turn it into housing. We could have made millions on that, but we wanted to keep it open, and we found a very good farmer in Kevin O'Dwyer. I mean, just phenomenal. And you can see what a huge success that's been, and it's maintained open land. So again, the sixth generation we are still thinking about Easton and how to make it better.
Well, I think, Fred, the Shovel Works is clearly, the major win of the last. And Fred was at
terrific development.
Fred, I'll give him a quick shout out before moving on. He was the one that got these high test characters from Cambridge, architect J. Wickersham, to come out, and there was a famous meeting in the lower rooms of the Oaks Ames Hall, and when J. Wickersham and one or two others got their PowerPoints out, and was packed. And he said, this is not an impossible situation,
Yeah.
Well, it was also very good because there was a real partnership with the town. I mean, there were a lot of moving parts in that, and I'm happy to have played one small part, and it was at the beginning, when really communication had broken down between the developer and the town officials. So we were able to get in, keep the dialogue going, and then those two got back to, the two major players, the town and the developer, got back together again. So it was a very nice, everybody really did their part, and it came out exceptionally well.
Well, certainly Colleen Corona was at the point of the spear.
She was.
That for us, that thing could have derailed
Well,
any number of times.
she really, her spear is what drove them away.
Yeah, it got rid of the
beginning,
turns.
and that's when we came back and calmed them down and got them back at the table.
But
And I think
how
Colleen
important
calmed down, too.
compromising is.
She was so good.
And
Precisely.
it not just compromising, but I think recognizing that while there are many sides, to an issue like that, that the important thing is that you keep moving toward that goal. You don't give up.
Fred knows this story, but I was in Hopedale the other day, which is by Milford, and that's where the Draper family had this textile business, and they sold globally. They sold textile machinery.
Sure.
And same thing happened with the Ames Shovel Company. The things moved away and whatever, and the factories there, stayed. But now, you go there, and the factories are gone, and it's like 3-4 football. It's one big field. And I said, what a good save we made in Easton. Thank the Lord. Because they had a great tradition there. I mean, they were a global factor. So, and it was a community thing.
But you look at the old high school, the yellow brick building, on Lincoln Street.
Sure.
Go to the Oaks Ames Hall. You go to the library. Go to the Quested House. Go to the old Parker House that was redone. Go to Unity Church. Go to the cemetery. Parsonage. It's all uninterrupted 19th century buildings. Same scale, same everything. And that's very rare to find.
And how about the mansion at Portland State Park?
Yes, that's 20th century, but but that's a great real estate save too. What was it now? It's 1,700 acres or something. So,
And of course, the town of Easton was settled in 1694. They were incorporated in 1725. And it's truly amazing to be involved in the planning and preparing for a major celebration. Can you imagine 1725 to 2025? We're bringing this community together to celebrate the history of the town of Easton. And Fred and Bill Ames, you go back in history. When did you settle here in the town of Easton?
1952.
1952.
I came home in a laundry basket and bang, I was planted there. So,
The sun
1952.
shone down and
The clouds parted.
parted.
Clouds parted. Yeah. Choirs of angels.
the angels
Yeah,
sang.
no, probably not, but
Symbolically.
symbolically.
Let's
yes.
talk about some of the historic buildings. And why not start with the Oak Ames Memorial Hall? I know that you take an active part in that.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've been with it for about, I think, since 1979. And a lot of changes have happened. It was built as a memorial to Oak Ames, who again was a major figure in building the Transcontinental Railroad. And it was paid for by his sons, Oliver, who was the governor of Massachusetts, and Oakes Ainger, who built Quessett House, or Queeset House, I don't know what to call it, behind the library. And it's a very important building also in terms of Richardson and his partnership with Frederick Law Olmsted, the landscape architect. You look at those magnificent front steps, which seem to come out of the granite, out of the rocks. And so it's very striking that way and very memorable for that partnership. And it was designed as a pedagogical extension of the library. And back in those days when the shovel company was going, they had a lot of classes for workers, for the immigrants to learn English, for the women to learn office skills like stenography so they could take the train into Boston, make some money for the family. Very much involved. And also at that point, the shovel company had a bed reserved at Massachusetts General Hospital for anybody who needed it. And so there was no Social Security, there was no Medicare, there was none of that. So the family had to play a much sort of integral role in the lives of their workers. And that was really sort of symbolized by Oak Ames Hall, its large meeting rooms upstairs. The library is a much more refined building. The Oak Ames Hall is really built for gatherings, and we're having a concert there on Friday, and it's going to be a huge success, sold out. So we're very pleased to continue that tradition of being a gathering place for all sorts of different groups, for clubs, for you name it. And it's going strong, thank you. I think we realize it's something worth, our father devoted a great deal of time to these buildings, the library in particular, and putting a lot of these trusts together for management. Yeah, so it's really been passed down from generation to generation. And he kept saying, I remember Billy said, well, don't do what I do, And I don't know if that was reverse psychology because we ended up doing exactly what he did. So, but again, this is not out of any guilt of making money or anything like that. I think it was always deeper than that. I didn't really totally buy that, we did this for guilt or to save our image. I thought there was a real connection, and this is.
How many in the family, Bill?
Well, I'm the genealogist, so you're asking the right question. How many in the family are involved in Easton, one way or another? Fred and I, of course, live here, and the Oliver Ameses don't live here, but they're our first cousins, but they own Langwater, so they're here a lot. But I'd say,
There's the farm.
The farm.
ART, Ames Realty Trust.
What farm?
Langwater Farm.
Well, I was just getting to that, Fred.
Okay, he's good.
I'm
good at this.
good, but not that good.
I'm sorry. He's always.
So if you add all the others, like who are involved in the Ames Realty Trust, and I'd say there's 10. I'm just picking that number based on +1, -1. So it's nice because a lot of them live in Boston, and they're involved in different boards here. I know there's the Easton Community Corp, which Fred referred to earlier, which is the entity that manages all the funds whose income is dedicated to the library and the park and all this good stuff. So it's been a tremendous win for us because it enables us to participate in this legacy, which is a community thing. It's sort of a team or
Well,
make a lot of friends, and it's wonderful. So it's
and from a family perspective, it's been very good because this way, like my son can get to meet his cousins. If there wasn't this connection with the land and the farm specifically, they'd never really get to know each other because they live in different towns and this and that. So it's been a very good unifying aspect for us working with Ames Realty Trust, which is the entity that owns Langwater Farm, the land of Langwater Farm. So it's been very good that way in with family ties.
So I was going to say earlier that Fred was talking about our father, and Dad used to love the story of how he mowed the lawn of the library, front lawn. So he's a big, strong boy, Dad was, and so he had a push mower, before the rotary mowers.
Yeah.
And he used to tell that story, not every day, but once in a while. And I was very proud of that, that he stepped up. I don't know what happened to the landscape. I don't know what the backstory was, but the key was that he was informing us in his own way.
He was setting you up for involvement.
He was devoted to that building. He really was. It was quite remarkable, the amount of time and effort and money he put into that. So.
Yeah, I studied the old minutes in that thing. It's amazing. Our father got in, I think, after the Second World War, and he was this junior. He was Mrs. Frothingham was the big honcho in those days. His aunt, and she was one that got him interested in it. And so it's fun looking at the minutes. If you're his son, he's telling you what to do all the time, rightfully so. So there's Aunt Minnie in the minutes telling my father
He's got
what
a recipe
to do.
book right there for
What to
you.
do.
It's interesting. I was at a convention and someone said, well, where are you living these days, Dave? And I said, I'm in Easton, Massachusetts. And they said, you must have heard a lot about the Ames family living in Easton. He evidently knew some of the Ames family members. And it might be either you, Fred, or Bill, or might be David. But he knew about Easton, and I know what you folks do to give back to your community, and I'm so happy, as I said earlier, to have you both as our honorary co-chairs of our celebration here. And I think it's important that you be involved, because when you think about the town of Easton, you think about the Ames family. And I always, and I've said this many times, Brian, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of helping others. And that's the Ames family. You folks jump in, you do what you can to help, regardless of what generation you come from. And on behalf of all the folks in the town of Easton, we thank you both very much. And that thank you goes to David as well.
Yeah,
Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
To all of the family.
Yeah. It must be in the genes, doing all this stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's in the water. Maybe it's in the Easton water.
I think it's in the soil. I think the soil. We're grounded in this town by that sense of community. I know we're going to take a break in a little bit here, but when we come back from the break, I think I'd like to hear from both of you, because we sit here month after month doing the show and telling people how incredible the celebration is becoming in terms of where it started and what it's looking like now. But I think when we come back, it'd be great to hear from both of you in terms of how you look at the kinds of things and the celebration that's going to be coming up, because it does speak to that history of the family and the history of the town. And I think they're inseparable.
As you said, Brian, it's not only in the soul, but soil,
Yeah,
but it's also in the heart and soul
it is.
as well. You're listening and watching Easton 300 as we plan and prepare for a giant celebration here in the town of Easton. I'm Dave Clifton, here along with my good friend Brian. We'll be right back.
Yeah, this is the life. Just relaxing by the beach. What could be better than this?
I've got an idea.
What?
I'd really like to find a forever home.
Forever home?
Yeah, like Jack Ryan talks about on Easton News. A forever home. All those animals at the APCSM, they get forever homes. Why not us?
Listen, man, I hate to tell you this.
Tell me what? Come on, tell me. Look, I can take it. Look at me. Come on, tell me. I can take it. Come on.
We're not real.
What are you talking about? Of course we're real. Look at us. We're sitting here on the beach, on vacation, being served raw meat, mind you. We're having a great time. How are we not real? No, thank you. I'm good. I've had enough. I've had enough. Thank you. What are you talking about? Of course we're real.
Look, it's not that we're not real. We're just not living, breathing animals. You don't even have a mouth, dude.
Well, oh yeah? Well, your eyes are just plastic.
Right back at you.
You've ruined my vacation. I can't believe you've done this.
I mean, while we're at it, why do we need a vacation? It's not like you have a job.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. All right. You know what? I'm out of here.
Cubby, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Oh, well, you have to get it eventually.
If you'd like to get your hands on a cubby of your own, scan the QR code on your screen now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, residents of Easton, friends and neighbors. This is Bill Ames, co-host with Priscilla Almquist Olson of the Film Connection on ECAT now for over 20 years. We're very proud of that. And we like to interview guests from Easton who have been involved in the film business, actors, producers. We're very fortunate today to have a producer of a film.
Welcome to Service Matters, a weekly radio show that talks about the good things that are happening in local communities and beyond.
Since 1978, the Easton Food Pantry has been dedicated to providing food to our neighbors in times of need. As long as there's hungry people in our community, our doors are open, our hearts will be open to help.
We also like to talk about the good things that people do to make a difference, and in many cases, to make dreams real for folks out there in need.
Just to chat about, as you say, some of the good things in life. There's some of the good things, the great things, and the happy things.
And certainly watch us on ECAT, Easton Community Access Television.
Oh, I didn't see you there.
Sick of all the new shows and movies dominating pop culture? Well, have no fear, because Old Time Movie and Old Time TV are here, where we like to add our own flair.
There's a truck out front, and if we could just get the keys...
Man, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Those are flesh-eating zombies. They upended our car, okay? We're lucky to be alive, especially Joe. I had to pull him out of the trunk, for crying out loud.
It's been a long day.
Also, make sure to check out the Radiocast, our accompanying podcast where we talk about what we've watched.
There was a lot of moments of just Mac on the raft going down the river, just internal monologuing over and over and over.
We show the classics and nothing but the classics. Well, except for the weird ones. Check us out on all our channels as well as our YouTube.
Welcome back to Easton 300. I'm Dave Clifton, and my co-chair of this TV show, Brian, is such a knowledgeable guy about the Easton community. And today we were so happy and pleased to be able to have both Bill and Fred Ames join us here on this show, because we're talking in about a month away about a community that's rich in history. And it's a community that proudly shows off the Ames name on most buildings. And I was driving up the street the other day and had a problem with my vehicle. and it got stuck on Ames Street
Oh, this is in Sharon?
in Sharon.
Yeah, that's funny.
It was over near a playground,
Yeah.
and I immediately thought about the Ames family again. But I'd like to talk to both of you about early memories, and I'd like to start with you, Bill. I'm sure you got lots of them.
Well, you know, I have a good number of them, but I think when I tried out for the Little League, the Pioneers and the Huskies and all that, I didn't make the team, but I can remember being up at the Frothingham Park, and there was all my classmates and whatever, and so I think I was a second baseman or something like that, and it was wonderful being with all these guys who were in my class, you know what I mean? And there was the Frothingham Park and everything, you know, it was wonderful. So that was, I think I was 8 at that point. Isn't that about Little League, 8 or 9, something like that?
T-ball.
Yeah. So that was a memorable moment. I mean, you had to be Bill Ames and you had to be there, but hopefully I portrayed it a little bit there.
Yeah.
But I remember when I went to the Army, I had the honor of serving in Vietnam, and it was in, this is the best story, I guess you could call it. In 1968, there was, as we all recall, there was the flood when they had those terrible storms came in. So I was up on this hillside in Vietnam, and was reading the Stars and Stripes newspaper, which used to come out once a day or once a week, I forget. So I opened it up, and I didn't know about these storms or anything. And there's this picture on page 3, Sullivan Avenue, North Easton, you know, and that great ponding thing down there.
Yeah.
So there it was, you know, and so I figured it was a sign of my future. You know what I mean? That there I was halfway around the world, and, you know, things are random, I get that, but, you know, so I always remembered that, you know, when I'm trying to do something right, doesn't go right, you know, I mean, this is why you're here, you know, it's just sort of destiny. So Fred probably has memories too, I'm sure. That.
Fred, how about some of your memories? I know you got lots of them.
Yeah. Yes, I have early memories.
The good ones, Fred.
Yeah, let me think. Well, you know, as it went down the line, I think David left in the 5th grade, Bill left in the 4th grade, Nancy left and I left in the 3rd grade to go to Milton Academy. But I remember, so I was through the 2nd grade, and I just had a very nice time. Nice thing about the 2nd grade is there's no such thing as an Ames or a Smith or this and that. You're kids, you know. So I really did enjoy it. Had some great friends, and Jonathan
This was at the old NEG.
What's that?
This is at the old Northeastern
Old
Grammar.
NEG, yeah. But I do have one memory that was of Peggy Morse. Peggy Morse was my first love. And she lived all the way down Center Street. And one day I decided I was going to go home with her. So I went up to Mrs. Morse and I said, "Oh no, I'm to come home with Peggy today." And she kind of looked at me, okay. And so drove down there, and she was smart enough to get on the phone immediately and call my mother. And they were very good about it. After a couple of hours, you know, I was dispatched back home. But I'm sure they were frantic, but that's what I did have. And yeah, so I saw Peggy a couple of years ago. And it was fun. It really was. So that's it. Peggy, my first crush. That's my story.
Well, the Morses were an integral part of our lives back then. Alfred Morse,
Yes.
the Morse car,
Morse
as we all
car,
know,
yeah.
speaking of history in Easton, he was part of that family that did the Morse car, which we see at the Historical Society, which has been a big success.
Yeah.
And I think it was something called Crowford Gear, was a company I think was in Easton, was sort of an offshoot of the Morse family.
Yep.
And Newbert Morse was his father. He lived in Easton, and Alfred Morse, he was on the board of the bank. But that's quite a story, as you know, those of us are familiar with the history of Easton. I mean, the Morses were right in there.
Yep.
And
They're a big family.
Wonderful engineers, very talented engineers.
Heard the name.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, Dave, you were mentioning just a moment ago that less than a month, you know, the kickoff event is going to happen, and it's going to happen at Stonehill College, and we owe a huge debt of thanks to Father, excuse me, to Father John Denning and the entire staff of Stonehill. They've been so welcoming in helping us find appropriate venues for events. But the grand open event on January 4th, so a month from tomorrow, is going to be at the Sally Blair Ames complex at Stonehill College. And so there again, you've got that crossover of the family and its legacy and its involvement in town. And I know the involvement of the family as the college has grown. And then just, a year and a half ago, we dedicated the Blanche Ames, elementary school complex, finishing off that campus there.
Yeah.
And, it's just, there's one example after the other of all that connectivity,
And there's going to be a Snow White movie.
That's right.
Which Winthrop Ames.
Yep.
Was that a tale of the Grimm brothers or something?
Yeah, he took it from the Grimm's fairy tale.
He produced it in a theater in New York, right?
That he owned, yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of.
And that was the first play ever written specifically for children.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he's a good story for another time.
Yeah,
but
we should have the Ames Story Hour sometime, and we'll do.
but just to finish on that, if I may, Fred, you can correct me, but I think they made a film, right?
Yes,
back
1927.
then.
Yeah.
And someone told me that Walt Disney saw that film in 1927 when he was very young, and that was like his aha moment because he was into
I've
graphics.
heard that story.
Have you?
I've heard that story. Yeah. So and I think that it's been restored. I guess the film. And that's going to be shown. Yeah, it's going to be shown at some point. So
I just want to go back to the opening kickoff event. It's scheduled for January 4th. And as you mentioned, Brian, it's going to be at Stonehill College, the home of the Skyhawks. And it's going to be something for people of all ages. So save that date, folks. We're going to have the opening event at Stonehill College, and we're going to have the closing event. The anniversary gala will also be at Stonehill College. And we thank you, Father John. I know the college has been very busy, and even in the athletic programs, they moved up to Division I.
Yep.
And we wish them nothing but the best. But this year-round celebration, Fred and Bill, you're our guest on the show, and you also have given your time, your talent, your energy to join us as honorary co-chairs, especially that name Ames, which certainly rings a bell. But Fred, I'll ask you first, what can you say about the committee, the celebration? You've been with it for a while. You've seen it grow. And we can't thank enough all the volunteers that have joined us. But it sounds like it's going to be something that people looking forward to celebrate.
Oh, I think so. And I just want to, one anecdote or one bit of trivia is they're called the Skyhawks because that was the landing place for my cousin Freddie's airplane. And that's why they're called the Skyhawks. Yeah, Freddie Ames, he had all sorts of things there, but he loved to fly. And I met, one woman told me that her father got a call, and Freddie said, okay, I'm in Boston, I'll be flying out again around 8 o'clock or something. Could you take your car out on the field and turn the headlights on?
Wow.
So he could land.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was an interest, a whole bunch of stories about him.
And if I remember, the landing strip really was from what is Belmont Street heading straight toward,
yes,
the mansion.
And you had to watch out for the telephone wires.
Yeah.
So anyway, but no, I think, Dave, the committee is really owes a lot to you. I mean, you have really navigated some ups and downs and held us together and kept us on track. This people I don't really appreciate just how much there is to do in this, how many moving parts from fundraising to getting permits to doing all that stuff. So I see this in the meetings. I'm not that much of a participant, but I'm certainly very interested, and I think the committee works well together. There's a lot of good ideas. There's lively discussions and certainly some humor, which is nice. Works away. And I'm sure some of you have seen the meetings at the Oaks Ames Hall on ECAT, and they're worth just look in and just see how much goes on and how much there is to do and how thorough it is and how well executed it is.
It's interesting. We'd like to thank all the sponsors who have come forward to donate to this cause. And I think everybody is ready for a celebration. I think I've said many times, the world's gotten a little crazy, but it's so important that we all come together in a positive way to celebrate the history of the town of Easton. And Brian, you've been a long-time resident, and you've been with me since we began this challenge of bringing the family together. I was known as a peacemaker, and I say to committee members quite often that it's okay to disagree. The bottom line is the celebration for the community, and it's important for us to come together. And people have been so generous. Volunteers have come forward. Not too many people have said no. Here we are out there pushing banners, pole banners. Not too many people said no. Everybody wants to be part of this giant celebration. You can see some of the posters that are around this interview that highlight some of these special events. We're going to have a second event. It's going to be called the Art and Cultural Festival. And that's going to be at your home park.
Yeah, Oaks Ames Memorial Hall.
At the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall.
Looking forward to that.
And all the artists in town, this is a community that's filled with artists. Not just athletes, but people of all ages that want to be part of a sense of community, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, and I think you look at a focal point of that is when we were first getting started, there was a contest among residents in the town for artists, professional and not, kids and adults, to come up with the logo for the 300th celebration. And there it is, from, Piper Jarnalis, who's a talented person, a music parent, a resident, somebody who's very active in the community. And it's another example of how that all comes together. And you mentioned people disagreeing. I think out of disagreement comes better decisions.
A healthy decision.
Absolutely. You need that input. You need that give and take and back and forth in order to come up with whatever best solution you can do.
Can you imagine if we all felt the same way about everything we talk about?
It would be pretty boring, I think, David.
But I also
we're
want
sort
to
of pretty safe from that, don't
Yeah,
you?
I think we are. I think we're insulated from boredom, at least in my experience, and probably in yours as well, Fred.
And Piper Janellis also did the pole banner.
Yes,
which
that's
is
right.
right behind my shoulder.
Yep.
And that's something you're going to see. Can you imagine, folks? There's going to be 152 of those that are going to be out in the next couple of weeks.
What, those banners down there?
Yeah.
This banner right here.
This is what's going to be hopping off of the poles up and down Main Street.
And they're two-sided vinyl banners.
Wow.
And we thank the people that contributed to the cause, $300. That's pretty good advertising for an entire year.
Yeah, and we thank Ed Bass and his team for, pricing them so that, we're getting a little revenue for the celebrations, but also that families and companies can afford to do this, and they're going to get, 12, 13 months of advertising, if you want to call it that, recognition. But again, it's just people coming together, coming up with solutions and coming up with ideas that work. And Bill, I want to jump back over to you. We talked to Fred a little bit about his view of how this has all taken place and what's coming about. Tell me a little bit about your view from looking at it as all these kind of myriad pieces are coming together.
Well, I think the thing that comes into my mind first is what we were just talking about with those banners with the clock there, which of course makes me think about our old friend Avery Lee Williams, who remember 5 years ago, we used to talk about we got to start the funding for the 300th, and he began his trust account or whatever it was, and that ended up with what, $50,000 or $60,000.
It was sizable, yeah.
$57,000, and he
So
went
that-
to a select board meeting, and he donated a $10,000 check for the 300th anniversary.
Yeah.
So he was a guy that thought about the future. He had a vision,
He did.
and it's coming true.
Yeah, Lee had all that energy, and what he did, we can give him a shout out. Lions Club, and Lord knows what else. He really talk about the spirit of volunteerism. I mean,
And the spirit of recruiting, because I was in the Lions at that point in time, and I think Lee was in some way honored as the greatest recruiter of other members of Lions in Lionism around the world. I mean, he was
over
he
200.
was renowned.
Over 200.
And what a gentleman! What a great guy to work with. And for years, I worked with him on the big board at the live TV auction
that's
that
right.
Easton, Cable Access streamed that live into everybody's home, and we had those banks of phones with people, and we were pretending to be Channel 2. We weren't quite, but we came close.
That was that takes me back. But the other thing I would, besides what I just said, there is the block party that's scheduled for the Governor Ames estate.
Yeah,
Pretty impressive.
really is.
I guess Doug King's been very generous to that effort, and just to hear people discussing the details. I guess it was originally going to be downtown, but someone very astutely, I think it was the police department,
Traffic
said
concerns.
you got 10,000 cars a day coming through there.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of. So having it down across the street here was a good idea, I think. And the fireworks, aren't we having fireworks?
We
We're
are.
going to have fireworks, and that date is scheduled for June 19th, which happens, Bill, to be Flag Day. It's a chance for us to salute the red, white, and blue, the American flag, Fred.
Yes.
But it's also an opportunity for us to salute the veterans in the town of Easton. And we have arranged for a flyover
Yes, we have.
prior to the fireworks and the
Nice.
concert and the family picnic.
Your daughter going to leave
it'll be
the?
a lot
No,
of things.
unfortunately, she's not flying anymore.
Too busy that day.
No, she flew for almost 12 years, and a number of deployments of the Gulf and stuff. But on her last deployment, she, for whatever reason, got interested in medicine, and started mentioning that to her command structure. They said, "Well, we have a program for that," and they the Navy sent her to medical school at Rutgers, and she's now almost finished her 4th year of residency in orthopedic surgery. So
Terrific.
she's not flying anything other than sitting in the back of a Delta airliner when she has to go someplace.
Well, she's an amazing young lady.
Yeah, she's.
The four of us would also like to thank Alex Pyres for
Oh, yes.
donating towards the cost of the fireworks. He no longer lives in the town of Easton, but he's a graduate of Oliver Ames High School. Lots of history, and he wanted to give back to the community as well. We also thank the Bank of Easton. They are sponsoring the concert from 7 to 9 p.m. The flag ceremony will be at 4 p.m. And we have a community picnic that'll take place with things for kids and snacks and all those kinds of things that go with a day out with the family. And I'm sure that there's going to be a huge crowd there.
I am too.
We have 10 or 12 police officers that will be on duty for that day. Security is a big part of our planning. With the way things happen in our country, that we want to make sure that things are safe as well. But
And you haven't mentioned it yet, but I will, and then I'll let you jump onto it. Probably the largest parade anybody around here has ever seen. And I know you're very proud of that, and you should be. I mean, you talk about a lot of moving parts. This is going to be amazing. You might want to just mention that.
there are so many people going to be in the parade that I'm wondering if anyone's going to be watching. The fact is that it's scheduled for July 12th, and the plan is to have 4, maybe 5 divisions. We're looking forward to floats. There'll be a band or a musical group or a drum corps that'll be in each division. It'll be led by the colors. We do have a flyover for the parade as well to salute the town of Easton and its history. That'll be taken care of by the Massachusetts State Police, the Wing Division. And
What kind of planes are they? Helicopters? Or?
I don't know if it's a helicopter or it's going to be a jet, but they have access to
a jet.
both those.
They do.
Okay.
But
Very nice. Very
I'll
nice.
probably know when we get a little bit closer. But it's going to start down by the Civil War Monument. It's going to go the length of Center Street. It's going to line up about a quarter of the parade route. Is just going to be for the lineup. We're going to have fire apparatus from all the surrounding communities, thanks to our chief who's coordinating that. We thank the Haynes Group for being the sponsor, overall sponsor for the parade. We got the Shriners coming to town.
We do.
The Burns Center, they have a whole division.
I know it well. Yeah, I know. They're
We have
famous with those hats on and everything.
They have their own vehicles. They're coming in trucks and buses.
Oh, yeah.
We got the sheriff's office bringing every vehicle that he owns. The fact is that there's going to be horses, there's going to be motorcycles, there's going to be Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Well, who's in charge of who of our committee is in charge of this?
Corey Ahonen is the coordinator of the parade.
Wow.
And he has about 15 people. And before all is said and done, there'll be about 25 to 35 volunteers.
Yeah.
They'll just to line up the parade.
Just wrangling that group into a formation is going to be, Corey and his team are going to earn their keep that day.
Yeah, you have to have done it a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
And the committee is excited about it. They are willing to share their time and talent and their ideas. We're still getting calls from the military, the Coast Guard, the Army National Guard.
Wow.
The general's coming. The governor is thinking about it.
Thinking about it. That's good.
So the fact is that all of the legislators will be in the parade. Our select board, they appointed 10 people back in 2022 to take on this responsibility on their behalf with the idea that we were going to expand. And the first two people that joined us were our honorary co-chairs who are our guests today here in the TV studio. And certainly we want to thank ECAT, Easton Community Access Television, for being part of our committee. They not only cover our meetings, but they're going to cover all of our events. They're going to be looking for more volunteers just to cover everything that will take place. So your answer is there will be a parade, and everybody loves a parade. So folks, we're looking forward to getting everybody together, getting families together, getting neighbors together, getting some folks that can get their barbecues going and to get their neighbors together. There are some folks in town, believe it or not, don't speak that often to their neighbors. It's time to knock on each other's door, come out and enjoy the community, because this is a great place to live, to work, and to enjoy. And you can be very proud to be a resident here in the town of Easton. And you don't have to ask that question about history. The Ames family come up at the very first meeting, and that was in January of 2023.
Can't avoid them.
When you think about the Ames family.
Still here.
We know where to look when we
And
want
who
history.
would have thought that we'd have the two Ames brothers sitting with us today? The third one is not here. He doesn't live in town, I guess.
No,
But David, we hope that we get to meet you at some point in time.
Oh, you will. And one ironic thing, there's just about everything is named Ames. So when the grammar school was coming up, right? The new one, and I said to people, well, thank God it wasn't another Ames building. It's an Ames building.
Yes,
so,
it is.
We went
An
from-
Ames building, yeah.
There is.
Blanche Ames
Yeah,
Ames.
Blanche Ames. So, my God, it just multiplies. Anyway.
I know it. Well, I know I speak for David when I say this. It's an absolute pleasure to have both of you here. It's an honor to have both of you here. And I think for the folks who are watching at home and who will see this as it gets rebroadcast, I think a great opportunity for people in the town to see and hear from parts of the Ames family and to understand how involved the family always has been in the fabric of the town, and to see the kind and talk about the kinds of contributions and the kinds of really legacy that this family has helped to build in the town. So thank you both for spending your time with us today. And
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you for your kind words.
And we'd also like to thank the Avery Lee Williams Family Foundation for their generous donation. Bill mentioned earlier the Douglas A. King Builders, Inc. We thank the Northeast Savings Bank for their timely contribution, the Dorenzo Charitable Foundation, and of course, Bill Howe has been very generous. And there are many other donors who have made healthy donations to the cause. We have a total of 8 signature events that will take place, Bill and Fred, on 7 different days. We also have another 5 or 6 major events that will take place. We have many different hosts. The Friends of Borderland State Park will host an antique car show with 300 cars.
Oh, wow.
And that would be
The number
something
300
terrific.
keeps coming up, doesn't it, David?
That's right. And our
300.
post office
300.
box is 300.
I get it.
I thought I'd throw that in.
Very
as
What's
well.
300?
300.
And I think our producer is telling us we have about 300 nanoseconds to wrap up the telecast as well.
So again, we want to thank our guest. And Brian, I don't get a chance too often to thank you personally
You're entirely welcome.
for your participation, not just here helping to do this cable cast, but also at our meetings. I say to each and every one of you out there, go forth to serve, do it with a smile on your face. And if you're going to do something good to help someone out, certainly do it with the dignity that it deserves. I say to all the residents in the town of Easton, there's still time to donate. There's still time to give us your time and talent to be part of the celebration. And you are part of the celebration when you come to all the events. So stay tuned. There are plenty of brochures that are available. And people are talking about it. People are excited about it. This cablecast has been a production of ECAT, Easton Community Access Television. I salute all of you as citizens of the town of Easton. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to the Ames family.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.